What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia again, looking at a piece of real estate, hoping to buy some real estate for $1,000, just like the title says. And just like last time, it's not that $1,000 isn't a special number. I'm just going to buy a small piece of a property. Um, if you haven't been watching my channel recently, I've been experimenting with some of the websites where you can buy fractional real estate. Primarily, my videos have been about Lofty so far, which is a place where you can buy tokens, usually around $50 each, representing a piece of property. A slice of ownership in a piece of property. If you did watch the last video, I just want to apologize. One of the things I'm trying to do is help you see the way that I'm looking at real estate as far as in my day-to-day business as a real estate investor and as somebody who is a real estate agent that only works with investors. I'm trying to share some of the knowledge that I have as far as how you do due diligence on the property itself. And I think, at the end of that last video, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I YOLO'd into about $280 worth of tokens. It's a very small amount for me, but it's something that I wanted to, I just did it because it looked like there's some value to be had. But the point of my video is looking at the underlying real estate, and that piece is not something I ever would have purchased. I think that I made it clear in the video that I'd never buy that property as a whole, and so maybe because you're buying just little pieces of it, you can take a little bit more risk. But that's not really what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to show you, the things that we really should be looking at a property, what makes a solid investment from my perspective. I'm obviously not telling you what you should buy and what you shouldn't. I'm just trying to show you the way that I'm looking at these and some of the things that I check, both a lot of free tools online, some that I'm paying for, um, a lot of the information that they provide themselves. But so, I think, and I started off one of the other videos like this. I think that there's a lot of people out there showing you buying tokens on Lofty, showing what they're doing. And they're doing a lot of what I call on platform due diligence. They're looking at all the information that Lofty is providing them, and then they're trying to make a decision based on that. But I think what I want to do is really stress a lot of the off platform due diligence that you can do, some of the other places that you can look for additional info. And just some of the things to think about that might not be, immediately obvious. And so, one of the things that is important is to click every single link that they provide. Read through every page. That's something that I'm trying to do now ahead of time, because otherwise, a full due diligence on these while I'm recording a video would be way too long and probably really more boring than what this one is already going to be. Um, but one of the things you can do is actually look, they provide a Dropbox with all the different documents. We're going to look at some today, but we'll start off looking at the property itself and some of the pictures they provided. Um, this is similar to some of the Airbnbs, and I should, before I jump into that, what exactly is this? 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom home that they're listing on Airbnb. The person who's managing it has a couple others. He's also an equity holder in the property. He's the one who's originally selling these tokens on Lofty. But so, I think he's done a fairly good job setting this up. He's doing a lot of the trendy things. He's got the game room, the ball pit, which hopefully he's versed and have in how to clean that and the complaints that you end up getting. I don't know. That's one of the things to think about. This is an interesting room, but again, they're really trying to make it look fun. As far as the decor goes, I'd say of ones that we manage and of ones that are, my clients actually buy here in San Antonio. This is sort of average. It's not over the top, but it's the type of home that I want to see. It's 4+ bedrooms. When they list it, they actually list it as 6 because they're using additional rooms as bedrooms, which I think is perfectly fine to do on Airbnb. It's a little bit different than when you sell a home. What qualifies as a bedroom for a guest often is different than what qualifies for a bedroom otherwise. Um, Although some people push that too far, and that's one thing that we want to look at. But it's got multiple bedrooms, holds a lot of guests. It has a pool. It has a lot of different things to do. You see, it's got a somewhat small kitchen. That's not something that really deters me from buying a short-term rental. Very few people are cooking a huge dinner. They want to be able to reheat food. They might want to be able to cook a dinner here and there. But most of the time, when people are renting these, they're on vacation. They're not cooking Thanksgiving dinner here. It's very uncommon. You do see they've got a lot of seating, which is one of the things that's important. If you can put 16 guests in beds, then you need to have seats for all of them. You need to have places for them to eat, places for them to hang out. And it seems like they've really addressed that pretty well in this home, just from what I've seen. Um, it is always a little bit difficult just from pictures to get a sense. You can see they did sort of cheap out on furniture, right? I mean, they're not these are not lavishly furnished, but it's not terrible either. It looks like they picked stuff that's just going to be durable, and functional, and it's something that I'm okay with, depending on where the price point is. They have sort of just um, you know quirky art, and I think that actually works really well in places like this. I have a bunk room, which is this is something that we're doing a lot, is having a room with multiple bunk beds where you're putting a lot of kids if multiple couples are traveling together. So I actually really like this choice. I like that they have the giant Connect Four. They've made it pretty playful. At least so far, if everything looks clean and well maintained. I don't love that they don't have, that this is the way the backyard is, which is the dirt. I'm curious if that's how it is today. One of the notes that I saw in here is that it was renovated by the owner's construction company, and so I'm wondering if they're going to sod this. I wonder, but that gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that okay, they've got a professional that they can use for stuff. At the same time, it does make me a little, on the other side of that, you could be a little worried that they're overcharging because it's a captive vendor. But so, overall, I like the shade sales. I think those are really, they're still, they really came into popularity probably 4 or 5 years ago, but I think they're still a great solution. Why they're covering just dirt, I'm not sure. So it's interesting. They did a lot of things nice or well. I think this backyard isn't the best setup just yet. I am really curious what if this is just how it still is when they went live, or if they just went and took their pictures early to do this. But really nice looking pool. They've got the outdoor cooking area. They've got a nice deck, and I think having a lot of shade is really important. So I like that they did the sales. Um, you have the laundry in unit, which is very important. Guests want that, but so do your cleaners when they're doing turns, depending on, what volume. A lot of them will clean linens just while they're there doing their other cleaning. Sometimes they'll take it off site. I don't know what they're doing here in particular. Um, Putting plenty of board games in the home. That's actually, one of the STRs that we have is really just it did very well just because we gave it we put a tons of games in there, a lot of fun things to do, and there wasn't much else, but we got a lot of good reviews because of it. This is just a really fun room, the way they have this set up. So and plenty of pictures of it, and then we're back to the beginning. So overall, I like the way they set it up. There's definitely some room for improvement. But it looks like one that at least here in San Antonio would do pretty well. This one's in Austin. As we started some other ones, I like to check what that market looks like, right? And so, first thing I always like to do, go to Wikipedia. Definitely, if you're not very familiar with the market, you should read all about it. Me, my favorite thing to do is to check growth rates and trends. You can see population has just very steadily grown by large amounts. You can see, the 2003 estimate. It's not a huge jump. It's smaller than you'd expect in that time period. There has definitely been a little bit of a pullback, and depending on what time period you look for, I think they've actually had a little bit of shrinking lately. I think a ton of people moved there in a short period of time. Some of those people decided to bounce and go somewhere else. You can see that in their home prices, and this is, I just jumped over to Zillow, uh, showing a trend of we're starting in 2017. prices really exploded and have come down a little bit. I think this is why, we're getting some of this honesty here where, they're projecting that there's going to be that the appreciation is actually going to hurt the property a little bit. And actually, I think we'll see that. Where do they do it? Here, projected appreciation minus 2.4%. I actually really like that they do that. I think that they're acknowledging that there's some challenges in that market. I don't necessarily believe you're going to continue to have a downward trend. I think it was just when you have a straight up line, so it's very often you're going to have some coming down a little bit. But I think if I was thinking about Austin and over a longer time horizon, I'm not worried at all that we're going back down to these types of prices. Could it happen? Of course it could, but there's so many things still going well for that market. I can't imagine it, but one of the things, like I said, I mean, you want to read everything that Wikipedia has to say about it. You want to look at news stories. There are still employers moving there. I think you've seen some that have moved out recently as well. I think the thing that's hurting it the most is a lot of people move there that had remote jobs, and some of those people are being called back to the office, and so they can't continue to live there. I think that's why we saw this. But you could also already see there's a pretty big flattening there. So for me, I'm not too worried about this. I do like the market as a whole, but it is something to think about, and it certainly adds some risk to this property. The other thing I always like to do is look at the Google Maps for it, right? Just take a look. Where does this sit as far as Austin goes in general? Let's zoom out. All right, we're on that northwest side. Getting close to Round Rock and Pflugerville. You can see it's still it's probably, I don't even know, much less developed if you look back 10 years and 20 years, even more so. But, really a fully built out area. I mean, it's not, there's not some easy place someone's going to go and stick a whole bunch of homes right near this, which is one of the things that in Texas we have to look out for a little bit. One of the things that I think is always interesting to look at is this an area that has a ton of pools? When you look at maps like this in certain places in Arizona, basically every single home has a pool. Here, I mean, you see plenty of them, but it's not every home, right? And so when you're thinking about buying an asset and the pool is one of the main amenities, it's not as if you can just buy any home in that area and they're going to have one. It's also, it's both expensive to add one and time consuming. Sometimes, I've had clients that were on a pool wait list for over 6 months to get the one put in that they wanted to. So, it's one of the things that I like to get right away with a property, if we can. And so it's good to be able to look at that map and see, okay, is it just, a dime a dozen? Or are they just everywhere? And they're certainly not in this area. I like to take a little drive down the street like this. It's actually a beautiful street, lots of trees. They are mostly older homes by Texas standard, not by a lot of the country. I think, old here is it more than 10 years old. Then we stick it in the old category. Where I grew up, there were plenty of 100-year plus old homes. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I already have a little bit elsewhere. And, one of the things I'm really looking for problems, and I didn't find any going pretty far out. And you have decent access to a highway. So I was really happy with this look at it. Let's see what we're doing. And so, one of the other things that we did right away is, sometimes you have to really question what they're doing here. They're saying, okay, the property's listed at $882,900, which is a 5% discount to this appraisal. We're going to look at that appraisal. Let's see. See how recent it is, because we saw that prices were going down. And I see, okay, yeah, that's a recent appraisal. It's a few months old, and this is the price that they've got. So, okay, to a certain extent, It looks like if this were the price that it were listed at, that would be true. But if you look at the order book, it's 927,700. So what's the difference here, right? Like, is this what we're actually paying? I mean, this is the price per token plus we're paying our transaction fee. So where are they getting this number, right? Um, this is again, we're just doing this on platform due diligence. We can just click on their financials and then we see, okay, they are saying this is the price of the asset. This is the closing costs. To sell, this is the upfront DAO, and I'm actually, so this includes the appraisal and inspection. I don't know what else they've got in there. That'd be something I would be interested to see the breakdown on. Are they? I didn't actually look that up before. Um, I'm just so used to seeing, pretty high numbers like that because you have real estate commissions, but you shouldn't have that here. So then what do you actually have? Maybe lofty fees? I'm actually not sure. That's something I'm not going to dig into here because I think even with this amount, you'll see, I think it's a perfectly fair price. But so, are we trying to prove this 927 or the 882? Either way, I think we're okay because, the difference is, what is it, like $55,000 or $45,000? Um, you know, when we have clients or when, ones that we're managing, if you buy a property, you get it all set up for Airbnb the way that they have. You're never going to spend less than $50,000 on your furniture, your games, your linens, when you add all that stuff up, your decor, you're going to spend more than that anyway. So even if this is the number that we're trying to get to, um, I think as long as we can feel good about the 882, I'm actually pretty happy with it. And so one of the first things that I was looking at was the appraisal. I think if you're going to buy one of these, you really should look through these. You get so much information about the property by doing this. They give you all the details, the size of it, the neighbor information about the neighborhood. You get to look at all the other comps. It does look like when I'm looking at the other comps that this higher price is sort of a well, some of these are pretty decent prices, but let's see, where were the other ones? I end up scrolling too fast when I'm talking on here. Um, but yeah, but they get to this, a value that's over what even our total token value is, and so appraisals are one professional's opinion of value at a point in time, but I think it's good. It looks like we're at a discount to that. So one other thing, let's see, I'm going to go like I always like to. I like to look at Zillow. This one actually scared me when I first looked at this. They're saying 599,000. It's a huge difference from what we had on the appraisal, but it looks like partially there's a discrepancy in the square footage that they're using. Um, and I think that's because of the renovations. It looks like because when we look on here, let's see, where did I see the square footage on here? Um, well, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time staring at this, but that's one of the things that you want to do, right? Like, look, does the square footage match up? Um, okay, yeah. Obviously, we should be looking at the property, the price per square foot. Ooh, yeah, here we go. Gross living area. I don't know why I couldn't find this. But see, obviously we have a much bigger number, right? And so a lot of times Zillow's just taking what they think the price per square foot should be and they're multiplying it by the size that they have on record. And so they just don't have the best info. And also, if when you look at this property, this was clearly before a lot of work was done to it. So although this worried me a little bit, I would typically trust an appraiser over Zillow, but it is another place that I want to check. So this scared me. I looked on homes.com, 840. They're still using the smaller size, and so this made me feel a lot better. Um, if they did add square footage, which is what appears to be the case, the appraiser is going to only They're usually going to do their own measurements and whatever space that they're including. But so one of the things that we can do, and this is a tool I don't think that I mentioned before, but especially here in Texas, all the counties have these appraisal district websites where you can search for the property and you can see some info about it. And so you can see, okay, the county, I don't really care what they appraise it at because county appraised values are typically not very accurate. And I mean, you can see they had some really big swings on this one, right? We went from 430, and this sort of matched up with where prices are moving, but they went back down. But what they are typically good for is, and they're all a little bit different, but is finding out, what the improvements are. And so here, um, the HVAC residential. So this is the air conditioned residential space. And this is actually what matches up with Zillow's number, right? Yeah, the 2645. And so this is usually all that would be appraised. Um, Now, what does that mean? There's a couple of possible things that happened here. Um, Sometimes that means there was an addition that was made. Either, they converted the garage, they did something like that. And I know they give us, let's see, inspection, insurance, operating profit, renovations and updates. So what do they do? New pool heater, new pool automation system, new decking, new backyard, new sunshade, new flooring, new tiles, remodel bathrooms. Add extra room downstairs with wall enclosure. Back room area addition. This is what I think we did. Added a game room in the garage, new bench seating. Okay, so they're adding square footage to the home. Why this hasn't shown up on the appraisal district, is it's so one, I think that in the future we can expect to have a higher tax bill because when you have more square footage, that means you're going to pay taxes on a larger property. But the other thing is when you have an addition but it doesn't show up on your CAD, on your county appraisal district, it often makes me worry that the addition was done and the square foot was added without permits. Now, that's not always the case, and sometimes, and this is a relatively recent renovation, sometimes it's just the case that they haven't gotten the updated information yet. I think it's perfectly possible that that's what's going on here. Um, but it is something that you'd want to look into further, especially if you were buying this whole house. And like I said, I mean, I don't want to make that distinction too often, but it is something that if I were, oh, I clicked back on the wrong one, but you can see on here they're advertising as a 3,500 square foot property, so even larger. Um, but so that is something that if this were here in San Antonio and a client was looking at it, the next step would be to look at the city website and see, were there permits pulled on this one for that addition. I think you probably can. Let's see. Oh, but is this outside the city limits actually? So one of the things that we have that here in Texas that's a little weird. Sometimes you'll have an Austin address, but you'll be outside the city limits, even though it looks like it's in the city, and then you end up having not those same issues. So let me look at a couple things here. Um, let's see. Austin city limits map. Oh. This is probably an issue that I'm not going to be able to figure out while we're on here, but let me just see. No, actually, from like a really just eyeballing it perspective, I think that it's inside those. Let's see, we've got 183, 183 and 1. Yeah, I think it's right around here. We go back and forth. Where's this here? Where's this big long one? That looks like McNell. But yeah, I don't think that's the issue here. Um, oh, having a little lag on that site. Um, honestly, it's. I want to mention it to you as something to look out for. It can cause some problems. Um, it's something whenever I have a client, I always recommend that they look into. It is something that I've bought properties that have that as an issue, and if that's the only thing that I identify on this that I don't like, I think that I probably wouldn't stop me from pulling the trigger. If it was done without permits, there's always ways to rectify that. And it's not especially when they're just like converting space. Um, like I said, I mean, what I have to recommend to clients is often a lot different than what I do as far as buying my own stuff. Um, and there's certainly some added risk if it was not done properly. But again, it's not guaranteed that that's the case. It's just something I'd want to look into. I'd spend some time on if I were putting a lot of money in this one. Um, so okay, we looked at value, right? We looked at why there might be that discrepancy. But overall, I think we're getting to a value, the 840 on homes.com was that using that smaller amount. But if we could use the larger amount that the appraiser was working on, and we use these dollars per square foot, I think you get there easily with the homes.com number. What do you get with Zillow? So let's see. Let's see. So we're going to do 599,100 divided by the 2645, $226 per square foot. Let's look back at the square footage on here. So we're going to multiply that. So what we're doing, so we're taking that square footage that Zillow thinks, and we're going to multiply it by the square footage that the appraiser says the property actually is. So 3160. So 715,000. So still Zillow thinks this is overpriced. One of the things, I just don't always trust Zillow. I mean, I think it could be right. It is one negative indication, but because of the homes.com value is good, and I like it better a lot of the times, and they're still pretty good even with this lower square footage. And we have an appraisal. I feel pretty good about the value there. This is not one that I think is a huge value play because just like they said, I mean, or they're admitting up front that maybe they're going to have a year or two of negative appreciation, or who knows how long, right? And so this is definitely about buying a piece of real estate that I really like in a market that I believe in the long term. It looks like it has a good rental yield. And so that's one of the next things that I want to look at, right? I'm going to go on to AirDNA. And this is one of the few paid tools I'm showing you. But the part that I pay for is just these comparable short-term rentals. Oh, look, and they've already got one here. And so this is good. So whenever it shows up as its own comp, I love that. But so let's look at this first. I put it in as 6+ beds, 2.5 baths, 16 guests. 16, which is what they're listing it as. 16 guests for 2.5 baths, in my opinion, is insane. I think it's plenty of bedrooms because you can put beds all over the place, and they do the bunk room and everything. But I think they're trying to cram in too many guests for how many bathrooms there are. But if I do use all their assumptions, I get 128,000 in revenue projected. That's top line revenue. That is everything that comes in. It doesn't include any expenses being paid yet. And so one of the real tests I like to do is what we just call a revenue to price ratio. And so let's see here. We have our market cap. So this is what we're paying. And our revenue, I said 128,000 divided by 927. So that's 13.8% revenue to price. when we're shopping here in town, I'm really looking for something much stronger than that. There was a time when 14% would really cut it, but that's when interest rates were significantly lower. One thing they did give us, the loan, and their rate is 6.624%. Obviously, with the current structure, we're not paying that, but I think it's important to just look at, what is a reasonable revenue for a price. Uh, Interest rates in today's world affect prices, and that's why, and yields on the properties, like if you're comparing one to another, and which is why I bring it up, not because of what the actual interest rate being paid on this property is, or how that's working. And so that's actually pretty low. Um, let's look at it as its own comp. So when it does this, it's saying revenue potential. Then it said days available 166. During those days, it had 74% occupancy. Or no, so this is weird how they're showing the potential is equal to annual revenue, because typically that won't be the case, because there's only been up for 166 days, and so you can't always just double this number if you didn't have the right number of days available. They do have a really strong average daily rate, 74% occupancy. Is that what's getting that? Let's see. So 461 times 365 times 0.74. Okay, so if you use their average daily rate and their times their occupancy, that gets you to 124, which is pretty close to that 128 number. That doesn't work exactly right because of seasonality, but it makes me feel a lot better than when I first look and see, oh, what is this 56K, 56K comparable? You can look up on here and see some of the other comps. You have one that's made 100 and, why does that say 116? Let's see. 116. Yeah, so you've got one that's made 116,000. But then you have a lot of these smaller ones. So let's go back. Let's back up and look at some of these other comps that it gave us. Okay, you've got one that's 165. 6 bedrooms, 3 baths. This looks like this is indoors. Oh, interesting. It's covered. So I do like to look at what's comparable. They opted for more like fancy, less fun looking. Um, we've had Airbnbs that do well either way. But then they did in the bedrooms. They really toned that down. Huh. Um, if you could get to 165, you start to get like, well, what is that? Let's look at that. If you could get to 165, what percent? So let's bring that up. 165, 1.3 divided by. Okay, see, that gets you to a really respectable number based on your price. And so, that's one of the things that we have to do, is look at the different comps, see like, could I reasonably expect to match this one? And I think maybe the answer is yes. Let's see what else we have though, because sometimes when it's doing its estimates, it says 128. Uh, these are actually the same one twice, and this happens sometimes where it just kind of screws up. But then, okay, we got a 107.5 bedroom with a pool and jacuzzi. 7 bedroom that's getting to 135. So this is going to really be a matter of, yeah. See, I think like it's, even though this house might actually be a nicer house and pool, when you're looking at I think that they're doing the right thing as far as the game. Oh, this has a nice game room though. Okay, never mind. I didn't see that yet. Some of this stuff we're doing in real time, I didn't look at ahead of time, obviously. Um, yeah, they really just have one little spot though, right? Like that's the same spot they're showing us a couple of times. I do just think like the fun little things work a little bit better. They have a really good average, so this has been doing a extremely high rate and just getting lower occupancy. Um, so I don't know. It looks like some number, between 14 and 18 is probably achievable. One of the other things that we want to look at is, let's see, we looked at that, looked at the appraisal. Um, yeah, let's just go to here. I mentioned, let's see, click on this details. You can look at their listing itself, which is where, not there, right here. And then, one of the things I always like to do, so there's 28 reviews. They're all really strong. I mean, we got a 4-star, good and some okay. So obviously you always want to read these. Actually, on balance, so let's think about this one. I think I'm ready to pull the trigger, but let me think for a second. What do we have here? We've got a property that I think the property value is probably accurate. We have a so they're projecting 185 there to hit this yield 20%. Now, one thing is, okay, there's two questions to ask, right? One is, do I believe this 20% yield? And I think the answer to that is no. I don't think you're going to hit this 185. I think your property taxes probably go up once the county appraisal district realizes that you have more square footage. I just don't necessarily believe they're going to hit this exactly. But then the other question is it going to return something that I'm happy with, right? I mean, we don't have to be anywhere near 20% on something like this on the active yield for me to think, this is a worthwhile investment. What if it's half that? What if we get to a 10% rental yield? Well, if the value is really going down, I'm probably not happy with that. But what if it's somewhere in between half and 3/4, right? And I'm getting a 15% yield. Um, that's something that I can see this working. And honestly, my opinion of Austin, and this is, I think it could go either way. But I don't imagine that prices are going to continue to go down. I think it's a market that's going to be strong for a long time. I think that once it gets over its current short-term issues, that we're going to see it head back in the right direction for us. Um, whether or not that's true, who knows? Let's see if there's any other documents we want to take a look at before. Just go ahead and jumping on this one. Let's see. What did I do? There we go. The inspection report, repairs, obviously that's something you should look at and go through everything. Like I said, a lot of this stuff I looked at ahead of time. Furniture invoice. This is interesting, right? Like this is what I was talking about. I wonder how much they paid for everything. Yeah, $42,000, right? And so that's part of the equation that if you are setting up your home for an Airbnb, you're not just buying the home, you're spending a lot more money on that. They've got their operating license. That's can't load without the file extension. I'm not terribly worried about that. I mean that it's something that you'd want to go back and verify. But their profit and loss statement looks terrible. They've only they've only got June through August at the moment. Although small profit so far. But Airbnbs, they never start off as great, or they rarely start off as great as they'll end up being. So what am I doing here? Looking at a market that I like, a property that I think they did a pretty good job with. Um, a yield. I don't believe this yield, but I don't think it's half of that, right? So I think it's probably in a neighborhood that I'm happy with. As far as, 14, 15% seems reasonable. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention is the debt on this is fairly low, right? Where do they have it on here? Let's see, UC loan. Nope. Yeah, they have a loan of 462,900. We did look at that loan doc, but again, this is something that you want to scroll through. Even though the owner is the one that has to pay for this, anytime you have leverage on a property that we're buying a token for, we want to think about, well, how much risk is that? And so all of those things together, if this is held for the long run, it looks difficult. It looks like it's difficult for us to be too hurt. And that's, I'm always much more worried about the downside than the upside for stuff like this. Obviously, they're building in some decent upside. Like I said, I question that they'll hit the 20% at least early on. But again, I don't necessarily believe that this negative 2.4% is what we should expect in the long run. In any case, all those things on balance, I think I am going to just pull the trigger and get some of this. So let me see. Let me try to go through one of these and see if I can get it to actually click while we're on here. How many tokens do I want? I want a custom amount because I want to spend, let's get 20 tokens. We're going to do a limit order. I want the money to come out of my Lofty wallet. USDC. This isn't one where I'm trying to get anything higher or lower, because it is, it's their initial offering, and so they're always selling them at $50 as far as I understand. So I think this is right. So let's preview that order. 20 tokens using my Lofty wallet to pay it. That's using the USDC. That's what's in my Lofty wallet. Price per token, $50. That's what we're talking about. It's going to expire. That order expiration, it's only open for 30 days. And then their fees. And I keep talking about those fees. Let's do some math on them this time. Well, it looks like 5.5%, right? We bought $1,000 worth of property. Let's see, 55. Come on. Yeah, 5.5%. That seems like it's staying in line with what we thought. Part of that is because it's funding. I think we talked about this last time. Part of it is, so we've got a $30 platform fee, but $25 is contributing to an operating reserve. So this isn't really a fee, and it's money that we're just putting in there to take care of it. So I don't care about this at all. So really, our fee is a 3% fee for this. They should break this out more, because sorry about that. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty. My screen recorder froze as I went and tried to purchase it. I think for some reason there's something that keeps these two things from working at the same time. And it might be intentional. I mean, maybe they don't want me to be recording the transaction itself. But in any case, you can see I did get that buy order placed. Status closed. So I guess that actually already went through. So I have to go back and look in my account. You can see that the one I did the other time already closed. This was that first one that I used with my gift certificate, which, don't forget, you can get a gift certificate for first $50 token if you click on the link in the description. There are, terms and conditions to that, but as far as for what I had to do, I just had to sign up for the account, give them my info that they need as far as it being an investment account, and then I was able to do that right away. So I think that's how it should work for you. You can see this order that I did on the Odom Av one for the tokens. I was trying to buy the slightly discounted tokens, and for them, somebody else bought them before my thing went through, and so it's leaving that order open for the remaining ones for the rest of the time. Once you do get them, they show up in here. I don't know why that order says closed, but show up here yet. There we go. then I'll have to go through. I'll have to click and sign this owner's agreement. But in any case, I think it's quite long enough today. This is one I went ahead and grabbed some. I think that this is a reasonable deal. I'll tell you, there's almost never a property that I'm 100% happy with, not just on this platform, but just in real life. One of the things that you have to just learn to do is start pulling the trigger on deals. Now, if it's one that you're really stretching for and you're buying a whole property, I think you need to do a little bit more. But because of the nature of this, I'm trying to give you all the due diligence that I would do, but I am also saying, I'm willing to take a little bit more risk, so that I can buy a bunch of different investments and spread it out. At the moment, there are just not that many options on this platform. I think there will be more. It's to be quite frank, it's better than on a lot of the platforms that I've looked at, and so I'm going to have to um, keep looking. I think this is going to be a great opportunity in the future. Today it's a little thin, and so I'm going to keep talking about it, keep showing you stuff until I think that either if it turns out at some point that I don't think this is the best way to go, I'll definitely let you know that. At the moment, I keep putting money on it, and I think it's something that could potentially work out really great for us in the long run. So until then, I'll see you next time. We'll look at another property.